In the 25 years since I last played at Carnegie Hall, I have been enriching my artistic arsenal and seeking to reclaim the music I play as a connection point for deeper spiritual experiences. I invite you along this video diary where I will be sharing my preparation. And in this video, I discuss the 5 quotes by the great composers that have inspired me and are the lifeblood of this comeback concert. I hope you will enjoy it. So I am going to be playing in Carnegie Hall after 25 years, and I'd like to talk to you about some of my reasons for doing it. And as I was journaling about it, I realized that my top 5 reasons for doing it had a lot to do with famous quotes by some of my favorite composers. Some of them are featured on my program that I'm preparing for the concert. So I'm hoping that this video is going to be a little bit POV video that will take you behind the scenes of my preparation, my thought process, how I do things at the piano, which is, I think, a little bit different. So hopefully it'll be something for everybody. And so let's get started. All right, the first reason I am playing in Carnegie Hall after 25 years away has to do with a feeling, a still voice inside that says something to the effect that Beethoven mentioned. Beethoven wrote this letter called the Heidelstadt Testimony. At a time, he was so young, he was in his early 30s, and he realized that he was going deaf. And he thought it was over. And he considered taking his own life. And it's actually this pivotal statement that makes him stop from taking his life and actually going on to produce some of the greatest music he ever wrote, if not the greatest of all time. So I think it's important for people in transition times to reinvent themselves or reclaim themselves. And I'm sort of in a transition in my life after 25 years away from my last performance at Carnegie Hall. Among other things, I became the mother of 2 children. And now my youngest one has flown the coop, so to speak. And so I find myself an empty nester. And it's a strange feeling. I won't say it's an easy feeling, but I thought that somehow that needs to be filled. The role of motherhood is now very different. It's not as hands-on, obviously, with adult kids. It's still present, but in a very different way. And I thought it was important to not stop the flow of creativity. Motherhood is a form of creativity because, after all, we are forming and shaping lives and hopefully feeding them, nourishing them with the right emotional, spiritual, and supportive soil that they need for their life. And well, music has never left me. It's always been a big part of my life. And I've been performing the last 25 years, but not on the scale of Carnegie Hall. So I wanted to come back and see what that 25 years has done to shape me, because I was a very different person back then. And in that time, since I played, a lot of things have happened to me. One of the major things that happened to me, aside from getting married and having a family, was that I went from being spiritually bankrupt, because at the time that I was playing the concert, I was 29 years old. I was very lost. I was very worldly. I was looking for answers in many wrong places. And it was 7 years later that I had a crisis happen. It was also that kind of forced me into a position where I had to really cling on to faith, which had been dimmed in my heart for many years. And so once that happened and I saw the power of God, I saw how powerful prayer is, I realized that my life could not be the same anymore. And even my approach to the piano needed to change from being focused on, well, perhaps this idea of art for art's sake or accomplishment, to something very different, something way deeper, which was a search for deeper meaning and spiritual connection in the music, which is always there. And I will say I've always had that desire and that curiosity to explore that in the music, but it somehow became so much I would say, a mission from that point on is to reclaim the music for the spiritual gift that it has to give us, the emotional gift that it has to give us. And I also was able to develop a technique that 25 years ago when I played, I was at the very start of understanding a lost technique called the golden tone technique. It's what I call it. And it is based on the approach from the 19th century of tone production and how to make the piano sing. And so I was able to develop that into a piano method. And so now, all these years later, I'm really curious to see how this translates in a more developed way. And I'm playing the same program, so I'm super excited about that. So the last bit of reasoning why to come back to Carnegie Hall is the fact that it's easy to get caught up in comfort. And performing is definitely something that takes me out of my comfort zone completely, because the preparation for a concert becomes my number one priority at that point. All my energy really professionally goes towards that. But I heard this quote today and I wanted to share it, that comfort never built anything worth remembering. So I figure, why not? Why not do it? Once I had a reclaiming of faith, a rebirth, and that was, oh gosh, in 2006. And I started this quest to use the music differently, at least in terms of my intention. Whenever I would perform, I would make it into a prayer in my heart, and also from time to time, if the circumstance allowed, I would ask audience members to hold in their heart a kind of prayer or intention. And through this simple act of raising up music as a prayer, some pretty astonishing things happened. And I'll share with you one story. There was a lady in the audience who expressed to me before the concert began that there was a deep wish in her heart, and she was very upset because she desperately wanted to have a child, and she was about 37 years old and already had multiple miscarriages, and she was wanting so badly to hope again for a child, but it seemed that she was afraid to hope. And it's so easy to sometimes be afraid to hope because we're afraid that it won't come to pass. So I remember distinctly in that concert playing some Bach music and remembering his words that God is always present when devotional music is played. I said, let's make this into a prayer. And I kept her intention as I lifted up the music. And it was amazing because I got an email from her a few months later that said, you know, something shifted at that concert. And believe it or not, I am 4 months pregnant. And what was astonishing was that 9 months, almost to the day of the concert, she gave birth to a beautiful baby boy. I believe, and I've written a book named Love Notes, Intimacy with God Through the Door of Classical Music. I do believe that classical music is a powerful gateway to union with God. I believe it also makes like Bach wrote, a special atmosphere where prayers are answered, where intention collides and meets and coalesces with God's heart and ears, and something really powerful happens. And so, in a way, I'd like to invite that at this concert as a prayer more than as a performance, because we don't know the power that these sounds have. And I take no credit for that. It's all the composers, these great composers. The ones that I'm featuring on this program are Haydn, Beethoven, Franz Liszt, Debussy, possibly Chopin, possibly Bach. I'm still deciding. But these, I believe that these were messengers, that these were angels sent to earth to give us special wisdom and provide us a stairway to heaven. I cannot express how much the piano has meant to me all my life. It's been a constant companion. It's been my diary. It's been a place of solace and comfort. And it's also been a place where I could just let out all the emotions. And if it wasn't for the piano, I really don't know how I would have gotten through life. It just is a resonance board for emotions. And it somehow reads us. And it's incredible how it does that. It meets us where we are. It comforts. It's really something supernatural, I have to say. But in this Chopin quote, I tell my piano the things I used to tell you. To me, this also speaks of a sanctuary. So yes, if you play an instrument and you love that instrument, many times it's your sanctuary place. But in the way I like to think of it, for this concert especially, is the word sanctuary itself, which is a sacred or secret place. It's a place of intimacy. And spiritually speaking, it's a very powerful word. And it actually, in the Hebrew letters, if you add them up, something called gematria, then it comes into being the number 444. And if you've been following me, you know that throughout the years, I've been reconnecting the dots from early church worship and how that links to classical music and how that really helps us in healing, in connecting to God, in quieting our anxiety, and so many health benefits, so many emotional benefits, so many spiritual connectivity points. So the word sanctuary in Hebrew coming up to the number 444 just almost knocked me off my seat, because for over a decade I have been talking about tuning the pianos to 444 hertz, which is the A, which is usually tuned to 440, to bring it up to 444 hertz. And not easy to do on a piano. I've been working with a special tuner for many years, but my hope is to up things even further, is to bring my very special Steinway, which was built in 1881. It's a centennial version of Steinway, and in future videos I'll tell you much more about it. But to bring that special piano, and boy, is that a gorgeous, the sweetest, most resonant sounding piano, to bring it with me for this concert and to have it tuned at 444, because Carnegie will not allow me to use their piano and to have it tuned at that pitch. I can only use their pianos and have it remain at the, pitch of 440, which is not where I want to be. So I'm praying that everything will come to pass, that the resources will be there to allow me to bring this really special piano. So this really has to do with the power of music, which science is only now beginning to look at as a serious modality of healing. Now, I've been using classical music and sacred frequencies from the Bible in very powerful ways. And if you'd like to hear more about it, you can go to my website. But it's incredible that a piece of classical music, great music, has a mirror effect where it reflects on us, it reads us, and it's like almost from a higher dimension. And I know that sounds kind of out there, but it's an incredible gift. Like, all we have to do is just sit and receive it, and it works on us. It's just an amazing thing. It's kind of like when you go into the ocean and you just float and you allow the waves to take you. It just like moves you, and you're absolutely at peace. You're surrendering to the movement of that water, and you're not fighting it. You're not going back to your will. You're not saying it must be this way. You're just allowing the current to take you. And the current of music, like in Beethoven's music, as an example, it will show you things, reveal things to you about yourself. I have so many times had emotional knots, like being tied up or very anxious about something, or like an emotional complication that could not be resolved any other way except through music. And no amount of talk therapy, no amount of journaling, even prayer, it was music that I think kind of met those frequencies in me that were tied up and was able to erase it. And so we know about noise canceling headphones, and so we can understand this concept that when we put those on, that it matches the wave of whatever we're hearing and then flips it and it cancels that sound. I believe that every thought, and it's true, every thought we have, every emotion we have is a wave. And these geniuses, these messengers of God, like Beethoven, Bach, Chopin, and the great composers, they gave us these patterns. They gave us these frequencies, these combinations that hold a key. They're actually finding right now that there are certain pieces written by Beethoven that can destroy certain cancer cells. And this is a concept that over a decade ago, Elena Manis, in her book, The Power of Music, she wrote this, that, you know, we are embarking on a day in the not so distant future where the new prescription will be take 2 Mozart symphonies and call me in the morning. So in this concert, I am very interested in exploring this idea of the music as a mirror of our heart, of our soul, and providing a transformative experience through the music. This idea of spacing in between the notes, this is like almost a quantum phenomenon. I don't know what happens. It's beyond my scope of understanding. All I could say is that it creates these powerful kind of beyond normal things. Like one thing that, and I'll show you, at the piano, if I play a note and I really listen to the note, like very, very deeply, and everybody can do this, it's just a question of intention. When you marry your intention with your deep listening, something else emerges. It's a quantum phenomenon. So if I play a note and I listen deeply through it, it actually, and I've measured this, it actually has a second bloom. But so here we go. The opening is so beautiful. So I just want to show you the difference between this quantum kind of magic thing that happens if I just play the opening F, the first note of the melody, without really caring about it. You know, I'm just playing it and it'll be correct, but I am not really intentionally living with the note. Okay, I'll play it again. Okay, so that's the sound. Now I'll play it with really intentionally listening. Did you hear it? How it kind of goes, like it's almost got a vibrato naturally. And I think that's just bonkers. How does that happen? The thing between the notes is really powerful because even after the note is played, if you keep listening to it intensively, it emerges, just like quantum physics says that through your attention, there is an emergence of something. And so this is it. Like, the note is supposed to be dying off. That's the physics of the piano. Yet, our intention overrides that. So imagine if this happens in music, it means that we have more power than we think in life. Thank you for joining me for this video, the first of a series of the comeback to Carnegie, and it's my hope that it will inspire you to engage with great music, to engage creativity, and also if you too are in a time of transition, that you have hope that the next chapter might be the greatest one yet. See you soon.